I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and he was extremely frantic. What he said when we finally got together was that, John, life is just so frantic. I don't know what's left. I don't know what's right. I got 1,001 things to do. I'm getting home extremely late. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm exhausted when I get up in the morning. And you know what? The worst thing is that it's actually impacting my team because I can literally see this ripple effect where we're doing a lot of work, but we're just not getting anything done. And you know what? I have no idea what to do. You know what? We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. In the meantime, I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. Now let's get back to my friend. Okay, we're having lunch, and then he goes out and he starts literally just writing out a list of all the things. And boy, was it all over the map. He had his personal pieces in it, which is important. Your personal family life, that's important. He had his professional. He had his nonprofit. It was all going all over the place, and it was just this huge piece in there. And it was like, oh my. And I could look at him, and you know what? I could feel his pain in there. I mean, I felt pain when I looked at the sheet of paper. First thing I did was ask him to do was just separate into buckets. Okay, so you have your work life, you have your professional life, you have your nonprofit life, however you want to look at your buckets. In this case, let's just look at the work side. And we pulled out all the things that he had to do for work. Then I kind of asked him the key question: what are the high value activities? What I was really coming back to was the 80-20 rule, sometimes known as Pareto. Now, some of us have heard of it, so this might be a reminder. Some of it might actually be brand new. If not, just go ahead and Google it, and you'll find it's been around for hundreds of years. But basically, what it kind of says is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs. So let's look at it this way. And sometimes people will say this: 80% of my problems come from 20% of my people. 80% of my revenue comes from 20% of my customers. And that's how we get to 80-20. Now, is that a hard and fast rule? The answer is no. It is not. It's in generalities. But it does make for a good conversation, 80-20 rule. In other words, what are the least amount of work that I need to do in order to get the maximum amount of value from it? So what we did was we took his list and we just kind of asked a question. Is this a high value? Will this activity actually move the proverbial football down the lane? Yes or no? Let's just help kind of like organize it on those areas. Now, sometimes that's kind of like a gut reaction. What I would suggest actually is to go back and collect the data, do a time study, see where you're actually spending your time, and while you're at it, where you're spending your money. Now, it might be money in terms of resources. So time and resources, if you know those two, then you have a much better idea of what you're actually doing. And then take a close look at it and understand which items can actually yield the biggest results. So let's look at this from an organizational perspective, and then we'll look at it from a personal side. Okay, so on the organizational side, I kind of mentioned revenue, sales on the front end. So what you may want to do is list out all of your customers, and then just ask which ones actually bring in the most amount of revenue. And then what that tells you is that you need to spend more time on the ones that are going to give you the most amount of revenue. We haven't gotten into economic profit, and we can certainly talk about that, but the generality is true. You want to spend time on the highest producers first. Or you can look at it in the sense if you're having like internal clients. What you might want to do is to list out all the activities and then determine which ones are of higher value. Now, how you determine that inside of a company, sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge. Sometimes it comes down to who's highest up on the hierarchical chain. Sometimes it determines what kind of projects you're actually working on. In either case, rank order them. And what you'll find is that if you spend your time on the high value targets, then your growth and your productivity will go up. And by the way, this also helps your team in order to prioritize their work as well. Now, in later episodes, I'll kind of go into the 2x2 matrix, and that'll also kind of take care of the rest of the story that's in there. So that was a little bit on the organizational side. Let's talk about the personal side. Now, I'm not necessarily a golfer, okay? I'll be quite frank. Statistically speaking, out of all the shots that I can practice, whether it's long or short, Usually it's going to be the short ones that matter the most. In other words, it's going to be that short game. So you may ask, John, where are you going with this? Okay, so let's say I'm going to practice golf. There's 100 shots that I can practice, like literally on the golf range in all kinds of different scenarios. But if I know that most of the game really comes down to the short game, then I'm probably going to practice those shots more than the long game. Just kind of determine, hey, where do most of the shots come from? And practice that shot. Sometimes we'll call that the money shot. Sometimes we'll call that the golden shot. But those are the high value ones. Those are the ones where you make the most amount of results for the least amount of effort. So I kind of present it two ways. One is organizationally. Most common one is kind of like rank ordering those customers and determine which ones generate the most revenue and then focusing most of your energy on that. And also use a sports analogy, which basically means breaking down the game and figuring out where most of the shots actually truly occur and then focus your practice time on that area. I can almost guarantee that process does work. If not, it's guaranteed you at least get up that 80%. No pun intended. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed this session of John the PM. If you did, hit that like, hit that subscribe. It helps us, helps out the algorithms. In the meantime, may all of your projects be awesome.